trust me, I get it. You're feeling the pressure to keep your faith separate from your work, worried that pursuing your God-given dreams might be seen as selfish or misguided. Here's what I've discovered. Our faith isn't a liability in our leadership. As a matter of fact, it's the source of our strength and wisdom. The real challenge is navigating how to boldly pursue our purpose while staying anchored in our faith. And that's exactly what the Beacon Show is all about. Each week, we bring you biblical wisdom and practical strategies from true beacons, Christian leaders who are illuminating the world. And it's also that you can let your light shine brighter and brighter. I'm Tamara Jackson, and this is The Beacon Show. Today on The Beacon Show, I'm excited to introduce you to my new friend, Alan, whose radical decision to cap his lifestyle and commit his company's profits to kingdom work has become a powerful testimony of biblical stewardship. Now, starting with a simple equipment rental business, Alan and his brother built Barnhart Crane into an industry leader while maintaining their commitment to live simply and give generously. In this interview, Alan shares candidly about breaking the connection between income and consumption, building a culture that attracts and retains top talent, and the joy of stewarding resources for God's purposes. With remarkable humility and practical wisdom, Alan offers insights on running a profitable business while keeping eternal impact at the forefront. Enjoy! Alan, welcome to the Beacon Show, where wisdom meets faith and success finds its voice. I'm so honored to have you here with us today. I've been studying your journey as a leader and a business owner, and I just know that you will have so many nuggets of wisdom to share with our audience. So thank you for making the time to be here with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you for having me on.
Well, Alan, it's quite the journey. I want to encourage our viewing and listening audience, as we wrap up the interview, make sure that you check out the company, follow the links in our show notes, learn more about Alan and his brother's story. It is truly inspiring because we might not get to all of it today, but I just want to kind of start with the foundation that you have as a person, as a leader, as a business owner, and where that kind of developed for you. So I know that stewardship is a really high value for you and in how you lead your life. Can you take us back in time a little bit? Where did this passion for stewarding what you have wisely, where did that come from?
Great. I embraced the Christian faith when I was in high school through a ministry called Young Life that presented the gospel to us and heard the amazing message of what God had done for us. And so at that point, basically committed to live the rest of my life in response to what God had done for me, and went off to college, grew a lot in my faith in college. As I was getting out of college, trying to decide what God had for me, some were saying you ought to go into ministry, go to seminary, and felt really that God had gifted me more in the area of engineering and business. But I do feel like that's a full-time calling as well. I think all of us who are followers of Jesus are in full-time ministry, and a few of us will get our paycheck from a charity or a church, but most of us will be in the marketplace, but still using our gifts and skills full-time. So when I entered into this enterprise, it was with the idea of doing it as a ministry. Read through the Bible to see what it said about business and money, and it said a lot. And basically came away with the concept of stewardship, that everything I have has come from God, belongs to God. I'm not my own. I've been bought with a price. And I need to figure out what God wants me to do with his stuff. I'm not an owner with rights. I'm a steward with responsibilities. And so that was my mindset going into business. And that goes back into the early 80s when I was in my early 20s.
You've said something there, and I saw this as I was preparing for the interview as well. The difference between being an owner and being a steward. For those that may not connect those dots, can you share with us your perspective on the differences between the two? And then what does that look like in practical everyday life? Because I think we could say I feel like, I'm being a good steward, but how does that show up in how we live our life and how we run our business?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset. I think it is a reality for a believer, and yet we have to have a mindset that aligns with it. A mindset that I'm not entitled to anything. I have responsibilities for everything that I have. I don't need to give God 10%, and then I can do what I want to with the rest. 100% belongs to God, and I need to deploy all of it in His service. Some of that will be used to pay my expenses, but I use the illustration of the Army cook, and I don't think the Army cook should eat better than the rest of the troops. And I think those of us who are followers of Jesus need to see ourselves not as entitled to consume what we create, but consume what we need and then steward the rest of it for the benefit of the kingdom and benefit of others.
As you were speaking there, Alan, I reflected to how many times it's probably countless, quite honestly, that I've literally heard people say, you give God the 10% and you have the 90%. Like, and it was said in such a way that, I mean, isn't this awesome? Because all God is asking for is 10% back in terms of the tithe. And you get to, kind of have free will, if you will, on what to do with the rest of it. So I love the way you're thinking about this. No, it's not 10% belongs to God. All of it belongs to God. And that definitely speaks volumes. And as our viewing and listening audience gets to know you a little better and learns about your story a little bit more, they will see that that's not just something that you talk about. That's something that you live. So, Alan, I'd love for you. You've got this mindset. I am a steward with responsibilities. Talk to us about some of the responsibilities. I know that some of them are around the financial resources. How does that also play a role in how you built your business? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I think it's every day. It applies to it doesn't it applies to much more than your money. It applies to all that you are, all that you have, all that you do. We each have skills and gifts that we need to be deploying into the for the benefit of the body. And I think when it comes to work for me, I want to. Colossians 3 is one of my favorite chapters when it talks about whatever you do, do your work heartily as unto the Lord. Be really good at what you do. And so I don't see work as a necessary evil so I can go do the good things in life. I see work as part of the good stuff in life. And so I want to, in my work, I want to bring glory to God by doing a good job, by having a personal witness to others, and then by generating more than I need to live and using that surplus or that extra to benefit others. And so it's much more than just money. You're a steward of everything that you have, and for some people, their stewardship will have nothing or almost nothing to do with money. God doesn't. Some people may look at this and think, man, everything belongs to God. That seems hard or difficult. It's not. I mean, we're serving a loving Heavenly Father that wants to give us good gifts, and He knows that we're not going to be satisfied with stuff. There's no item that we can ever get, no toy that we can ever get that's going to satisfy us. As I grasped that, I said, I just don't want to. I don't want to chase those things. I don't want to be the guy building the bigger barns and coming to the end of a bunch of hard work and a bunch of energy, and then God calling me a fool. That basically I missed it. And so that parable was a scary one for me when I was young. Saying I don't want that to be my story. So yeah, we're stewards. I think we're stewards of all of our skills and gifts, and those are all different for people, and for some people it has almost nothing to do with money. But I would say this: I think there is something about money. Jesus warned about money 10 times more than anything else. It was a big deal 2,000 years ago. It's a big deal today, and I think God doesn't need your money. He doesn't want your money. He wants you. He wants all of you. But because He wants you to hold your money with an open hand. Because there's something about money that is, even as people are listening to this, they may be getting nervous about it. There's something about money,
Probably.
that God says you can't serve God and money. Life doesn't consist in the abundance of your possessions. Godliness with contentment is great gain. And there's all these verses that I read that were both warnings and encouragements that it's okay to let everything go, because we serve a God He wants better things for us than we want for ourselves. And so we have not found our life to be sacrificial at all. It's been a rich, abundant life. Even though the choices we made caused us to pass up a lot of toys, we have not seen that as a sacrifice. We've seen that as a way to live a good life.
Yeah, I was reading, I think, an article where you had spoken previously, and you were sharing how, as you just mentioned, that you gave up a lot of toys. And I think one of the things that I remember, tell me if I'm getting this right, is that your kids didn't go to Disney when they were growing up. Am I remembering that right?
Well, we took wonderful vacations, went camping, did all kinds of things. We took our kids also all over the world. And so we had 6 kids, and we actually, it's a long story, but we actually took our youngest 2 to Disney years later because somebody heard us say that and said, "Please come. I'm
Please
in
come take these
Orlando.
babies.
You can stay with me." But we took our kids on purposeful trips, and so our kids, we took them to India, and we took them to Turkey and to many places in Africa, and met amazing brothers and sisters who are frankly so much more godly than I am, so much more committed, doing hard things in hard places. And my kids got to know them and meet them and be with them. And we had those people around our dinner table very often. And so my kids don't feel ripped off that they didn't have every electronic device or every toy. There were times, they were human, and there were times when they wanted it and didn't like to hear no. But we showed them the alternative also. And so the alternative to being a consumer is being a kingdom investor. And I think that none of them look back on it and think, man, I wish I'd have had more toys. I think the experiences that they had were so rich. I don't think the toys could compare.
Yeah, it's a great point because I think, here we are in an age where toys and gadgets and, all of these different tools have become front and center. And it sounds like what you were very intentional to focus on, as you were raising your children is let's create purposeful. That was a word that really stuck out to me when you were sharing. Let's create purposeful experiences. And they got to do sounds like some amazing things, but there was a purpose in it. It wasn't just go for entertainment or, to consume, as you have mentioned here. There was a purpose in those trips. So that sounds like a theme for you that through every role that you're playing, whether it's, husband and father, entrepreneur, business leader, you're focused on purpose. I'm thinking about the person that's watching us, that's listening to us, and they want to operate in purpose, but they're also looking at maybe some realities of, I'm trying to build this business. I'm not sure how to put all the pieces together so that it's really successful, so that I can do some of the things that you're talking about, like reinvesting in the kingdom and making sure that these kingdom causes go forward. Can you take us back in time a little bit to the early days when you were building the business? What are some of the things that, you thought through, that you put in place so that you could you felt confident that you could eventually reach that goal of it being profitable enough to be able to invest?
Great. Yeah. I mean, two fundamental things at the very beginning. Before my brother and I became partners, we talked through all those warnings that we saw in Scripture and committed to 2 things. One is the stewardship, that God owns the business. Technically, my brother and I each owned half for the first 22 years, but practically God owned it. We committed it to Him with our wives. And my wife Catherine was very instrumental in that as well. The second thing was we agreed to a cap on our lifestyle, and that we weren't sure what was going to happen. It was a very small business. We weren't sure if we'd survive the first year even. We were basically taking over my parents' businesses, and they were leaving leaving the country. And so I was a 25-year-old kid. We weren't sure if we'd survive, but just in case, we said, God, this is your business, and we're going to live a certain lifestyle for the rest of our lives. It's not a Mother Teresa lifestyle. We have everything we need, but relatively simple lifestyle. And if God chooses to prosper this business, we're not going to see it as a call to increase lifestyle. So we broke the connection between our income and our consumption on purpose and set some parameters and that sounds like, some people may look and think, man, limiting your lifestyle, that sounds like bondage. But we have found it to be the opposite. Putting constraints in your life leads to freedom. And trying to live a life without constraints and just sort of doing what feels good in almost every area of life will lead to bondage. And that's what we found. So, but we worked really hard. The first year, I probably averaged 100 hours a week working. And I don't recommend that, by the way. but didn't have any children at that time. Yeah, I was young. And we worked hard. And we continue to work hard. We see work as a good thing. And I'm 63. I've been working now for over 40 years. I have a very boring resume. I've worked for the same company really since I was 10 years old. But we work hard to try to be the best company in our industry. And when we were a very small company, we worked hard to be efficient. And how do we come up with better ways of doing things? How do we create value for our customer by coming up with better ideas? And then how do we harvest that value? Make sure we're charging enough. A mistake a lot of people make in business is they don't charge enough for the value they create. And we learned that over the years, and as we continue to get better and charge so we could make a profit. And if you don't have a margin, you don't have a ministry, and you can't do things if you don't make a profit. And the fact that we've been able to make a profit consistently for the last 38 years has allowed us to grow the business, to do a lot to help our employees and to pay people good wages and provide lots of jobs. And then also we every year from the very beginning, every year we took 50% of our profit and sent it out to ministries. And so we've been able to, the first year that was $50,000. It was what we thought was a lot of money. That number has grown and grown and grown. But I would say quickly, we've never given away a nickel that God didn't provide to us. God keeps blessing our company, and by having people join us who are smarter than I am and better than I am, and our company has grown because of it. And I think the commitments that Eric and I made from a lifestyle standpoint has helped us in both recruiting and retaining people. As we basically say, the fruits of your labor don't go to buying me a big boat. The fruits of your labor go to change the lives of people. And that's motivational to a lot of the right people. And it's been part of our secret sauce.
Wow. So a few things that I hear there, Alan, is it sounds like that decision to cap your lifestyle meant that you had more to reinvest in the business because you weren't trying to up your salary. Two, I heard you say this, and this is a really big one. I want to dig into this a little more. The mistake that a lot of people make is not charging the right price. And the connection that I heard you make is if you're not charging the right price, you won't have enough left over to be able to be generous and give. And you also made the connection of that also helps you to get the right talent in the room, smart people that can help you grow the business. Now, in my experience, Alan, I want to dig into this a little bit because for some people, and maybe you've heard this, there is a conflict for them as believers. There's this tension that they battle because they want to help people. That's a common thing. I want to help people. And some people that they've tried to help may even make the case, I can't really afford it, or this seems like a lot, right? And so the combination of those things, I think, creates a feeling, a tension of, well, maybe I should lower my prices, or maybe I should kind of try to operate at the bare minimum. Can you help that person that's watching us, that's listening to us right now, to understand that earning a profit isn't wrong? It's actually necessary. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, we would say profit with a purpose is a good thing. And so there may be people listening who are doing things for which profit is not their motive. They are doing things strictly to help people, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think our business is industrial. We're working for large companies. It's reducing our price to them doesn't help anyone. It's not like people can now use our services that couldn't before. It's the opposite. We're trying to find ways that make it that where we can do it more efficiently, more inexpensively than a competitor. So we want to charge what the market will bear, and but come up with better methods. So create value and harvest the value. So I think that's a good concept in general. But I do think there's times when people would say, I'm not in this for money, and I don't have to be to maintain this. Now, I think for some people that is lack of nerve or maybe even laziness and an excuse. And for others, it's completely correct. It's their mission. And so, but I think if you want to do something long term, and particularly if you want to grow something, you have to have the capital to do that. Now, if you're a ministry and you can find donors to do that for you, that's not a bad thing at all. But if you want to do it through business, then profit's important. And making a lot of profit, when we do a really good job, we may make 60% profit or 70% profit. But I mean, it's because we've created value. It's like this iPhone. It probably cost them, $30 to build this thing, and
Yep.
and they're going to sell it for $1,000, and it's worth $1,000. It's got a value that's people are willing to pay it because it's an amazing device. And we want to do those kind of things for customers where we're taking care of their needs. When they call us at midnight and need us to be there immediately, and we help them, our price to them is insignificant compared to what they're doing. So we want to create value by being good and working hard to be really good, and then harvest that value.
I love that, and that's a value that I ascribe to as well. Is you want to make sure that the client actually feels like, man, this is nothing compared to what I'm receiving, right? Because that's really where the exchange of money comes into place. Is the person has to feel as though the money that I'm paying for this pales in comparison to what I am gaining through the product or the service. So a person that's trying to figure this out, Alan, like, are there some practical pieces of advice that you could give them to help them to figure out, like, how do you determine what that right price is to get started? And then how do you articulate it in such a way? Because I think this may be where some of the sticking point is too, is I might believe that it's worth this, but I need to be able to speak to it with confidence so that the person that I'm presenting it to also finds value in it. So how did you guys work through that?
Yeah, I think we tried to stay away from the things that we would call commodity things that anyone else can do. If there's not a differentiator, if you're selling the same thing that somebody, if you're selling X, certain widget, and somebody else can sell that same widget and the quality is the same, and you can't command a much more of a price. The market sort of sets that. But if you're doing things that others are not doing, you're adding value. I mean, look at Chick-fil-A. I don't know that their food is substantially better than everybody else's, but the experience that you get there is better. And people line up to go there. And Starbucks coffee, and those are experiences that people are willing to pay a premium for. They've accomplished something by doing that. And so I think we want to keep, in whatever business we have, the ones I just mentioned are completely foreign to what we do. But whatever business you have, trying to do things that create either value in experience or value in accomplishing a piece of work that needs to get done, or providing a service. I think trying to find ways to set yourself apart where you're worth more and create the value.
I love that. So there's a thought process that you have of, hey, there's lots of people that are doing the same things, or at least are in the same industry that I am. So how can I distinguish myself? How can I set myself apart from them so that it makes sense? It's a logical choice, if you will, for those that value the type of experience that they are going to get from you versus someone else in that space. So that's a really important nugget for our viewing and our listening audience. If you're having trouble commanding the price that you believe your product or your service is worth, maybe spend some time like looking at what you're doing in relation to the others that are in the industry and put yourself in the shoes of the customer or the client. Is it easy to distinguish what you do, what your company does, what your nonprofit does? It's relevant in many spaces versus others. And if the answer is no, then that's some time that needs to be invested to really figure out what that differentiator is. And then you need to be able to communicate it to people so that they understand the difference. I think, Alan, you're hitting on this point, and it's something that I've had to realize in my journey too, right? The customer, the client doesn't know all of the inner workings of your business. They don't know the experience that you're creating for your teams and how that translates into better things unless they can see it or they can feel it. And so part of the job as a leader, as a business owner, is being able to communicate well the story of your company and your brand. So I want to circle back to the discussion that you brought up earlier, the point that you brought up earlier, Alan, about being able to hire the right people. And I love that, people that are smarter than me. I think that's really, really important because as great as God has gifted us, as you've mentioned, with gift, skills, and talents, we're not good at everything. So there's always somebody that knows something that we don't. Talk to us about what you look for, because this is another thing that I've heard come up. I need help, and I may even be at the point where I can bring on help, but I want to make sure I bring on the right people. So can you talk us through some of the things that you guys look for to ensure that the person is going to be a good fit for your company?
I mean, I think character is the first one, and if the person is of good character and reasonable competence, if they have the mental bandwidth to do the particular task, and there's all different tasks with different requirements there, then I don't think experience is necessary. I don't think education is necessary. Some of our best people, our highest paid people, never went to college. Some didn't graduate from high school, but they had within them a desire to be excellent, a great character, a good work ethic. So that's what we're looking for, a lot more than a bunch of degrees or initials. Interestingly, we have some people that are working here that have PhDs that we don't use their education at all. And one guy I was recruiting who had a PhD, and he said, "Why do you need a PhD in chemistry?" I said, "I don't need a PhD in chemistry. I need you. I know you, and you can help us." And the guy's been with us for 15 years, and he don't do any chemistry, but he has a very good chemistry in terms of being part of our team. And so we're looking for people that we also want people that want to stay a long time. That's a big help in what we do. A lot of our people are here for 15, 20, 25 years, and that makes a big difference. So our incentive programs are all set up around people that stay for a long time. And if they do and are successful, they can end up with a lot of money, but they're a hot shot and just comes for a year or two. They don't end up with much. So we're looking for a team player, not a superstar, somebody that sees work as a positive thing. Each additional hour of work is not sucking something out of them. It's part of the good stuff in life. A person that's, thank God it's Friday, would say,
Not a good fit for you guys, right?
go find something you like. Find something that you enjoy doing. If you don't like what you're doing, man, life's too short to spend that many hours doing something that's just you're gutting it out. So we want people that enjoy, in our case, picking up and moving heavy stuff and the challenges of doing that. And most people don't enjoy that, which is fine. We don't need. We have about 2,500 people in our company now. We don't need 300 million people. We need 2,500.
You just need the right group of people. I love that because you guys have evidently spent some time like really thinking about what is the profile look like of a person that's going to succeed in our company. I love that you've spent some time to get really, really specific about that. And the other part that I love is, okay, now that I know who is going to do well here. I'm going to make it attractive for them to stay here. And I think what you're alluding to there, Alan, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about that, is that's actually a win-win because the employee wins by staying longer. It's financially attractive, but it's also beneficial to you as a business owner because now you don't have that revolving door of hiring new people, right?
No,
Yeah.
it's definitely a win-win.
So I think this ties into, another thing that I've heard you talk about is efficiency. I want you to spend just a little bit of time talking to us about the importance of efficiency and how you guys look for ways to get better at that.
It's the other side of, profit is income minus expenses. And so efficiency is pricing right is the income, and doing the work right. The efficiency is so important. Sweating the details, not putting, in our case, labor is the biggest expense. Not spending too much time, too many people doing a project. Very often we'll come up with a method to do a job, and then we'll start critiquing that method. And we'll say, if we did it this other way, we could do it with less people, less hours or whatever. We could do the job would cost less. And often it's that third idea or that fourth idea that ends up being the way we do the job. It's one of the things we keep talking about is innovating and improving. Continuous improvement, I think, is a big part of our secret sauce, is that we find ways to do the work for a lower cost. And therefore, even if our price is equal to our competitors, we can make money because we've come up with an efficient way of doing it.
Hmm. I love that. So that's what creates, you mentioned earlier that sometimes it's 60, 70% because you guys have been able to get so efficient. So just one follow-up question on that before we move on. Is there dedicated time in your day where you're just brainstorming? Because it sounds like there's this iterative process, which I love, and it's one that we subscribe to as well. It's like, okay, this is working, but can we make it work better? And Lord, give me the divine ideas, give me the people that can help us figure out how we make this better. But is that set aside time, Alan, or is this more of just a culture that you have ingrained in everyone that they're just thinking that way? I'm curious on how that works.
Yeah, it's both. I mean, I will sit around as I'm driving home, might come up with an idea, think, but it's so far beyond me. I mean, it used to be I knew everything that went on in our company. If we bought a tire, I knew it. We had 10 employees. I knew everybody's kids' names. Now I know nothing that's going on. I
Yeah.
know very little that's going on. But I'm constantly trying to think of better ways, but we've instilled that in people. Continuous improvement is one of our core values. Innovation is a core value. Servant leadership, continuing to find ways to get better. We have a bunch of engineers, probably 100 engineers in our company. We have a group of them that every day gets together, and you can call in with a problem, and this think tank helps you process how to do the thing better and how to improve your method. So every day the engineers are working on projects from around the country. We have offices in about 60 cities now, and so they call in, and technology is really good for that now, and they can put drawings up on a board and work on them and figure out how to improve. We have an idea website or email, ideas@barnhartcrane.com. If you have ideas, send them in here. And a lot of our innovation comes from those ideas where somebody in the field said, "Man, it would be a lot easier if we could do," and so then we come up with a tool for doing that. So not only does it help you make more money, to me it's more fun. It's more interesting. The whole innovation process gets people excited. It's interesting. And so it's great that the things that are fun and interesting are also profitable and in our industry. So, and I think in general.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is in general. And I would echo that. One of the things that we found is, when people are able to be a part of making something better, there's a sense of fulfillment, a sense of pride, and that, like, I'm not just here, punching a clock, doing a task. I'm getting to use my brain, to use my gifts and skills to help make this company and make the experience that the client is ultimately getting better, right? So I love that you guys have this dedicated group, the dedicated email box. Those are great ideas. I want to just spend now the rest of our time, Alan, before I let you go. It's amazing how time goes so quickly. I want to talk about, this decision to cap your lifestyle, being able to bring on the right talent, and this constant focus on innovation and continuous improvement. Because you guys have been able, with God's help, to do those things well, what does that now afford you the opportunity to do from a kingdom perspective? I want to make sure we spend some time on that so that our viewing and listening audience knows that there's an amazing benefit to adopting these principles. So talk to us about some of the things that you guys have been able to do.
Great. Yeah, I mentioned that, from the front end, we said we were going to give away 50% of our profits each year. And so what God brought in, we send out. We're trying to be a conduit. God's the producer of all this, and we're the conduit. We decided we would figure, where do you send the money when it comes in? Who decides that? And we decided to do that as a group. Initially, it was 6 of us. Now it's about 60 of us that figure out what to do with the money that God is bringing in, and where to send it out. You can do a lot more harm than good by giving away money. And
Good point.
you got to be careful about that. You can create dependency. You can do all kinds of bad things. So the dollars, went from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions to, this year it'll probably be $50 million we're able to send out. And, and people kind of get wowed when they hear those numbers. I'm wowed. I mean, I think it's amazing. We've been part of it, but God's been the one doing it. And I hope people don't feel like, man, you guys are so amazing. God's amazing. We're regular. We're normal. And God's amazing, and he's allowed us to do this. I also don't think God is impressed with the commas and the zeros and the magnitude of the numbers. What was the number one Hall of Fame giving story in the Bible? It was the widow's mite. It was and God was watching people in the story. People were putting in lots of money in the thing, and Jesus wasn't saying anything. And then this lady came with just a little bit of money, a sacrificial gift, and God said, wow, that's really giving. So God doesn't need our money. He wants us. We made the commitment we made and had no idea that it was going to evolve to what it evolved to. So this group of 60 people now are all volunteers. They all work in the company or spouses. They have full-time jobs. They volunteer to help us travel around the world, trying to figure out where to fund the money. And the vast majority of what we send out goes to hard places in the world where the church is under persecution or struggling. So the Hindu world, the Buddhist world, the Muslim world are where we send most of our dollars. And so to figure out how to do that takes a lot of work. And so we had this group of 60 folks that are divided into teams and take on those tasks of figuring out how to deploy that money. And that's been a great treat. I mean, for not just my kids got to meet these amazing people, but a lot of my coworkers have strong relationships with amazing brothers and sisters, and help us figure out how to invest the dollars that God has given us in their work. And so that's been a great treat.
I love that you guys decided to do it as a team, and it grew over time now from 60 to 60 people. And I also heard in there, and I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about this, is it's not just, hey, this is a good cause, go do it. The team is actually going to these places, checking them out, and helping to form a decision about what to do. So to me, that speaks to due diligence. Talk to us a little bit about the importance, because, as a person that also aspires to be generous, and I know many in our viewing and listening audience do as well, there can be this heartfelt plea, this is the help that we need. And there are lots of people that need help. But one of the things that I've had to learn in my journey, Alan, and I'm hearing this from you as well, there is a responsibility. Part of being a good steward is doing your due diligence before you decide to give. So talk to us a little bit about your perspective on that.
Yeah, we even don't even use the term give anymore. We would say we invest, and we're looking for people that are interested in having partners, not donors. We recognize everything looks good on the video. There are charlatans out there, and there are amazing people, and there's mediocre people doing ministry. And it's not the case that people who are in ministry are amazingly godly, and people that are in business are evil and greedy. Now, there are evil, greedy business people, and there are evil, greedy pastors, and there are evil, greedy missionaries, and there are wonderful business people and wonderful, so I don't think that there's a vocational hierarchy in the kingdom. I think it's the hand and the feet, and we're all different. I got off on something, but remind me the question again.
Oh, it was due diligence. Yeah. So
Yeah, the due
you're
diligence.
still there. You're
So,
still there.
so we're constantly trying to ask hard questions like a partner would ask. We're wanting to understand: do they have godly leadership? What are the leaders really like, and how are they developing themselves, and what does their team look like, and what is their succession plan? Do they have an organization that's led well? Do they have a coherent strategy? Do we understand what it is they want to do? And then do they have a track record and a measurement system to say we are accomplishing what we said we were going to accomplish? And when we have to evaluate whether what they're planning to accomplish is something we want to invest in, we have to evaluate that. We also have to evaluate whether we think that they can do it. And then after the fact, we need to evaluate whether they did do it. And a lot of these organizations we try to invest with, we may invest with the same organization for 30 years. And then there's others that we don't invest with again after we've invested once. We ask lots of hard questions. We want to, and I think not just so we get a feeling for what they're doing, but also to help them. I think ministries need business people's input, and business people need ministry people's spiritual input. And I think when we partner together, we benefit, they benefit. We ask them questions that your typical donor doesn't ask. And we think that helps them. And again, there are some ministries that don't want that, and that's fine. And God bless you. And, but we're investors, not a wallet. And so we want to come with our whole self and get to know you and understand what you're doing and make suggestions and talk to other people about what you're doing, kind of get some references that maybe there's others that are doing giving in this world, and we learn from them and ask them, what do you know? Who else? Matter of fact, we're not very responsive to people that request money. Somebody may be hearing this and want to send a request for money. And,
Yeah, that's true. We should probably address that, Alan.
we say no to 99.9% of the stuff.
That's so good.
But frankly, everyone does. I mean, most people say no to it by never learning about it, never caring enough to learn. Nobody can meet the needs of this world. I mean, the fact that a need gets pointed out to us doesn't spring us into action. It's a matter of, is this a need we feel God is calling us to meet? And so we have narrowed that down. And as you narrow down, you can get better at learning how to do things, but it also means that you say no to everything else. And so the vast majority of things that come along, we say don't fit us. Not that they're bad, they're wonderful. A lot of these things are great. We just don't have the bandwidth to process that many things. And so we have focused on these 4 areas of the world. If it's there, we're really interested. And most of the things that we give to, we proactively go to them. They don't come ask us for money. We ask them, how can we invest with your organization?
I love
we
that.
train our people. There's a great book called When Helping Hurts, another one called Toxic Charity. These are books that talk about how you can really hurt somebody by giving them money. And I think the biggest thing people do is they want to do things that make them feel good, give them kind of warm and fuzzies about, I helped this person. The extreme example would be just handing out candy to children. They're going to be happy and it's going to be kind of fun. That's not helping their nutrition. That's not really helping the children. And so, there's a lot of examples of that are much more substantive, that you can hurt somebody and create a dependency. And, we've seen it in some of the elements that I think our government has done some of that and created some issues that have been detrimental in the name of, everybody's trying to do good things. In the name of trying to do a good thing, they do harm. So you got to be careful.
I love that. You guys are really investing time in identifying organizations to support that align with the profile of where you want to invest. I think even though, Alan, to your point, somebody might be watching and viewing us and they were initially thinking, "Hey, I'm going to send my request in," and no, that's probably not a good approach
Well,
for you. But I think there is an element of encouragement, though, is if you are staying true to the mission that God has given you, you are trying to do it in excellence. You've got a good team, you're investing in growing and developing that team. There are people out there like yourself and businesses like yourself that the way that they do impact investing, because that's a big term these days, is that they want to be intricately involved and they want to go out themselves and identify these organizations to support. So if you focus on, being spirit led, operating with excellence, all of those things, you could get opportunities. It may not be Alan and his team, but someone is going to notice it and someone wants to be a part of what you are doing because they know that that is what God has called them to do. So even though it maybe for some people it might feel like a letdown, I think there's also an element of encouragement in there. Stay focused on the right things, honor God in what you are doing and opportunities, because I can only imagine some of these organizations when they hear from you guys and know that you're interested in supporting them, that's a huge encouragement to them that someone noticed what I believe I'm called to do, and they want to be a part of it. If even if they only learn more, to your point about you come in and you guys learn more through the due diligence process, they're going to get better. That's going to make them more effective and more efficient in what they're doing, which allows them to make a bigger impact. And who doesn't want that? That's huge.
well, I think so. And, for ministries that are listening, I would say find good partners and be a good partner. And don't just try to extract money from people, but try to really help them understand your strategy and ask them for help in thinking it through. If you can find partners like that, you'll benefit. And, and the money that comes along is a byproduct of that. But finding good partners, um, then you don't have to keep raising money every year. You get people that want to help you continue to grow.
I love that because you said that there are some organizations that you guys have supported for 30 years. So maybe it isn't always, to your point, a fundraising challenge. It is building the right relationships and partners so that people want to continue to be a part of what you're doing, and they're willing to invest in the cause on a continual basis. Like I said, so many nuggets. I knew we would not get to everything. So I got to get you out of here. But Alan, just one more question before I let you go. We always like to talk on this show about legacy. I shared with you before we hit record. For me, when I look at what you and your brother have done with God's help and the impact that you've been able to create, it's like you guys have been working on legacy from day one of your business. And still, I'm curious, when you think about legacy, as a man, as a disciple, as a business leader, what is the legacy that you hope to leave behind?
I'm a little bit allergic to the word. I want to be a good steward. I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. I want people to be encouraged and maybe even warned with with the warnings that helped us. I'd want to pass on. But I don't spend much time thinking about legacy. Um, I want to leave my kids a rich inheritance of faith, of work ethic, of education, of basically the tools to go function in this world. I don't want to leave behind money, and I don't want to have I don't want my name on a building, or I want to make a difference. And I think I've gotten more than my share of credit for it. God has done an amazing thing and he's let us be in on it. And people too often want to give us credit for that. We made a decision in '86. God's taken it from there. And we watched him do an amazing thing. And at what point along the way should we say, now it's ours? We gave it to him when we weren't sure if it would even survive. So, I mean, to legacy to me is not something to spend time on. Faithfulness, continuing to work hard is something to spend time on. Hopefully that will lead to a well done, good and faithful servant. I don't think much about legacy, I guess.
Well, I will tell you from, just the short conversation that we've had, even though it's not a focus for you, and I agree, it's not always in names on buildings and endowments and all of those things, but you have certainly left us so much wisdom in how to build a Christ honoring business, how to hire the right talent, how to position yourself to be able to invest in the kingdom because you've set the right prices. That is a legacy, all that you have shared with us. And it's going to be one that continues to pay it forward. Who knows? It could be 5 years, 10 years from now, someone is going to stumble upon this interview and it's going to help them to figure some things out that they've been seeking God on. So I just want to thank you on behalf of our viewing and listening audience. Alan, thank you so much for spending the time with us today, for sharing your wisdom, and for leaving so many good nuggets. Some of us will watch this and listen to this, and we'll be able to apply it right away. And some things we might have to reflect on a little bit and get God to help us to put together a plan. But so much wealth of information has been shared today, and I am just so appreciative of you being willing to share.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a treat.